Let's talk about the call between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump. I don't think we knew this was going to take place, did we, today, until we got that Truth Social post from Donald Trump saying he'd had a good conversation with Vladimir Putin, lasted an hour and 15 minutes. In it, Vladimir Putin said that Russia will respond to Ukraine's recent drone attack on Russian airfields. And of course, Trump said the call was a good call, but wouldn't lead to immediate peace. There was also discussion about Iran as well. Tell us what else has interested people.
I mean, I thought that the immediate peace line was the most interesting part of it. If you bear in mind that Trump he started by saying he'd solve the conflict in 24 hours. Then it's been pushed back and pushed back. Most recently, he said, "Oh, just give Putin another 2 weeks, and then maybe he'll come to the table, and maybe he'll see the light and agree to this 30-day ceasefire that Ukraine agreed to back in March, I think it now was." And now he's conceding that there won't be an immediate peace, and he doesn't think it's going to be as easy as it all appeared earlier in the year. And, this is becoming a bit of an issue for him because he came in with these two big foreign policy objectives: one, solve Gaza; two, solve Ukraine, with a view perhaps to winning the Nobel Peace Prize. And both conflicts have proved more intractable than he predicted, basically. And meanwhile, there's the Iran deal that they're trying to negotiate at the moment. And that also is already looking like it might not best please Israel, which is, of course, a strong US ally. So there's a lot of challenges facing him on the foreign policy front.
Yeah, we know that Iran today said it wouldn't sign the deal that had been put on the table concerning nuclear armament, and so that's sort of becoming a bit of a dead weight. And Donald Trump apparently trying to sort of seek the aid of Vladimir Putin over that one. Could he have influence? Does he have enough or any influence over Iran to try and get something signed and over the line to sort of tidy things up a little bit for Donald Trump? That we'll have to see. Let's talk about tariffs as well, because was it last Friday Donald Trump suddenly announced the doubling of steel and aluminium tariffs from 25% to 50% across the board. This has come into place today. Mexico's President Claudia Sheinbaum said her country would take countermeasures if no deal is met with the US. The United States Secretary of Commerce Howard Lutnick's been speaking in Congress today about the tariffs. Here he is arguing with Democrat Senator Jeanne Shaheen.
The big issue is you can't fight a war without steel and aluminum production in America. You have to be able to make it. If you don't have the ability to make your own steel and aluminum, you can't fight a war. And that is what the president's doing. He's trying to make sure that we make sufficient steel and aluminum to protect our defense industry.
Which I certainly support. I'm sure all of us support.
Sounds like we exactly agree.
But I don't agree on the way it's being done, because we're not going to have the steel that we need immediately to provide the supplies that we need immediately. So we need to do a little better planning before we put in place those kinds of tariffs.
Roughly a quarter of all steel used in the US is imported. What's the chatter on the ground, George, from companies who rely on imported steel? 50% as a tariff is a lot to bear. It's going to kill the import industry.
Yeah, it's worth highlighting, though, that there's been a bit of a diplomatic win for Starmer, though, because he managed to avert, the doubling of the tariffs. Because even though as part of that US-UK trade deal, they were going to phase out those steel and aluminium tariffs. However, it was basically unclear, because the 25% would remain in the interim, if it was going to double to 50%. Starmer's managed to kind of avoid that. So, British steelmakers at least aren't facing that kind of cliff edge. But I also think it's worth highlighting the politics. When Trump announced the doubling of steel tariffs last week, he was doing so at a rally in Pennsylvania, which is obviously a swing state. He went to Pittsburgh, and it was a typical Trump rally where everyone was wearing MAGA caps and all the rest of it. And so this is also seen as an appeal to a cohort of voters who tend to be pretty important every 4 years.
How does the American public interpret these tariffs? We know that businesses are under pressure there. I just wonder how much sort of domestic cut through there is really.
Well, I think it's worth bearing in mind that also, if you think about when the tariffs were announced, which was a couple of months ago now,
Liberation Day.
Liberation Day, exactly. It takes some time for products to be shipped to the US, and the tax is imposed when they come to the US. So it's taking time to translate, but it's slowly coming through now. I think particularly there was some interesting studies looking at how, tariffs might first affect California and those kind of ports on the western seaboard rather than the eastern seaboard, because they're closer to China, and so products going from China would go through there. So it takes time to have its effect, but there are signs in, for example, the weakness of the dollar at the moment, that the US economy is not a happy place, and meanwhile Trump simultaneously is trying to force through his big beautiful bill, as he's branded it, which is going to drive up the deficit, and that's triggered this spat with Elon Musk over the level of US debt.
Yeah, the latest X or tweet from Elon Musk, I think that there were 5 overnight, weren't there? He is not a fan of this big beautiful bill, as you state. His latest tweet, 10 to 8 this evening: call your senator, call your congressman. Bankrupting America is not okay. Kill the bill. What is the appetite for this bill in the United States? It's heavy on spending without necessarily the money being there to fund it, right?
Right. Well, I think also it's worth highlighting there's now some pushback against Musk. I mean, Trump has been kind of reluctant to get into a war of words, but you now get kind of off the record briefings and people kind of pushing back, particularly if you look at one of the elements of the bill that could be scrapped to these kind of Biden-era subsidies for electric vehicles. And obviously, as the owner of Tesla, Elon Musk was doing quite well out of that. So getting rid of that is maybe, he's not particularly, it doesn't work for him. But more broadly, across the Republican Party, there are holdouts. There's Rand Paul, who Trump is the senator for Kentucky, who Trump has been kind of going after because he's a kind of fiscal hawk. He doesn't believe in driving up the U.S. Deficit, and he is one of a number of Republican senators who are causing problems for Trump, and he's basically been trying to browbeat them into accepting the bill. But bear in mind, it only just squeaked through the House of Representatives, so it's there's a lot of politicking that is going on.